Fright Night Vault. Audio horror for nighttime listening.
Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. Another door creaks open tonight, and the shadows have chosen you. Stay very still. The air grows heavy, and something unseen shifts in the dark. What I'm about to tell you is not rumor nor legend, but a story carved in mildew and blood, lingering where no light dares to stay. On the edge of town stands the husk of Ravencroft Memorial Hospital, a building most locals will not even point to. The windows are jagged, staring like broken teeth. Its roofline leans like a spine twisted in agony. And within its corridors, time itself feels frozen, though not empty. For the silence there is never still. It hums, it breathes, it listens. Ravencroft closed suddenly decades ago without warning. The official reason given was structural decay. But the nurses whispered a different truth, that patients began vanishing at night, one by one, always from the lower levels. Those who remained reported hearing knocking from inside the walls and voices begging from behind locked doors that no one could open. And then, one morning, the hospital was simply abandoned. Staff gone, patients scattered, files burned. The townsfolk speak of it rarely, but those who do always mention the basement, not the boiler rooms, nor the supply closets, but a locked ward that should never have existed. It wasn't on the blueprints, nor in the records. They called it Ward C, a corridor buried deeper than the others, where the light bulbs always shattered, and the air carried the stink of rust and rot. Some who stumbled on it described rows of doors without handles, their surfaces scarred with deep scratches, as though something had tried, again and again, to claw its way out. Numbers were etched into the wood, crude and uneven, carved by hand rather than painted. And on the floors, dark stains spread like veins, impossible to scrub clean. No one who found Ward C lingered long. They claimed the walls themselves breathed, pulsing faintly like diseased flesh. They claimed to hear patients sobbing, doctors arguing, stretchers rattling down unseen hallways. And worst of all, they said the air carried a low hum, like someone whispering from very far away. A voice too faint to understand, but too present to ignore. Most who entered the hospital left shaken, refusing to return. But then came the explorers, young, reckless, hungry for proof. They brought cameras, flashlights, masks. They promised their followers they would spend the night in Ravencroft, mapping every corridor, uncovering every secret. And in the lowest depths of that rotting place, they found the first set of doors. That, listeners, is where the nightmare begins. The explorers entered through a collapsed side door, its hinges shrieking like metal torn from bone. Their lights cut thin beams through the dust, stirring swarms of insects that clung to the walls like scabs. Every step echoed far louder than it should have, as though the hospital itself were amplifying their presence. They joked at first, nervously laughing to hide the unease. "Nothing here but rats and mold," one whispered, though his voice shook. The cameras rolled, recording peeling wallpaper, shattered wheelchairs, operating tables rusted black. But in the recordings, even before the descent, there was always something faint behind their voices. A hush, a breath, a suggestion that the group was not alone. They made their way downward, past broken elevators and collapsed stairwells, until they reached the lowest corridor. And there, they found the doors. A line of them, stretching into the dark. Wooden, warped, each one scarred with deep gouges. The explorers pressed their ears against the panels, laughing for the camera. But each of them admitted later they heard it. A soft scratching, steady, just on the other side. One door bore a number carved so violently into the surface that wood splinters bristled like thorns. 7. The leader, young, reckless, desperate for the footage, announced they would open it. The others protested, but he was already fumbling with a crowbar, forcing metal into rotten wood. The scraping echoed down the corridor like a scream, and with every strike the air grew heavier, damper, colder. And then, a hollow knock came from inside the door. 3 times, slow, deliberate, as if something within was answering. The group froze, their bravado stripped away in an instant. The leader swore it was just pipes, just the building settling, but none believed him. Still, he pried the door until it cracked open, its splinters weeping rot and dust. And what they saw inside was not a room. It was a hallway, narrow, endless, sloping downward. Walls slick with condensation, lights dead, the floor stained black. A passage that could not exist, carved into the bowels of the hospital itself. The camera shook as one of them whispered, "This wasn't here before. It shouldn't be here." But the leader insisted, for the followers, for the footage, for proof. And so, one by one, the explorers stepped into the impossible corridor, not realizing they had just left the world behind. The air inside the corridor was heavy, wet, almost alive. Their flashlights flickered against walls that seemed to sweat, moisture trickling in rivulets that smelled of iron. Every step echoed, but the echoes returned out of rhythm, footfalls answering theirs, closer than they should have been. One explorer muttered, "We're not alone." Another hushed him, but the silence that followed was worse than any denial. They pressed deeper, their camera lenses catching glimpses that no one could explain. For a moment, the numbers carved into the wooden doors reappeared, not on wood, but on the walls themselves, glowing faintly as though written in veins. The shadows in the corridor stretched unnaturally, bending against the light, reaching across the floor like fingers. And twice, when they panned the cameras back, they counted one more shadow than there were bodies. The deeper they went, the more the space bent. The ceiling dipped low, forcing them to crouch. The walls closed in, brushing against their shoulders, damp and warm like flesh. And then came the sound. A voice. Soft, rasping, impossibly close. Not words at first, only breath, but growing sharper with each step. 7. 7. Always the same word. Always whispered just ahead, luring them onward. Panic spread like infection. One explorer begged to turn back, but when they spun around, the doorway was gone. Behind them, the corridor stretched endlessly, identical, lit only by the dying beams of their flashlights. They were trapped. The leader, desperate to maintain control, barked into the camera. "It's just the building, it's just echoes." But then the light caught something ahead. A figure, standing still in the center of the corridor, skin split with glowing cracks, bleeding pale light through fissures in its body, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and its eyes burned like white coals. When it opened its mouth, teeth jagged and bloodied, the explorers realized the whispers hadn't come from the walls at all. They had come from it. The creature spoke a single word, low and grinding, rattling the air in their lungs. 7. The lights died, the corridor filled with screams, and the recording cut to static. When the recording surfaced online, it was a jagged fragment, grainy footage, warped audio, bursts of static broken by sudden screams. The explorers' voices rose and fell, distorted, desperate, fading in and out like a radio tuned to the dead. But what remained clear was the word that bled through the interference. 7. Police scoured Ravencroft after the footage went viral, but they found no trace of the group. No equipment, no bodies, not even a single footprint in the dust. The basement door was sealed shut when they arrived, rusted solid as if untouched for decades. And the corridor the explorers discovered, the one captured in the footage, was nowhere to be found. Still, strange reports followed. New explorers, lured by the legend, entered Ravencroft. Some returned shaking, swearing they heard knocking on the basement doors. Others claimed to hear voices whispering their names from just beyond the walls. And more than once, the number 7 was found freshly carved into the peeling plaster, as though written by unseen hands. The hospital was demolished soon after, its ruins buried under concrete. But even now, drivers passing the site at night report seeing a figure standing in the dust, its body cracked with seeping light, its mouth torn in a permanent grin. Sometimes, they say, if you slow down, the figure turns to face you. And if your windows are open, you might hear it whisper one final word: 7. Welcome, listeners, to the end of another Vault tale. Tonight's story, The Hospital Below, is finished. But remember, something new is coming tomorrow night. And it's worse than the last one. Subscribe to be the first to hear it. We upload daily. If you have a story of your own, feel free to leave it in the comments below. You never know, the next story could be yours. See you on the next video.